From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm NewsChannel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. 2017 is an unusual year in local, state, and federal politics. There are no scheduled elections. But 2018 lies just ahead, and already we have lots of contests to look at, including an open governor's seat, and one of Tennessee's 2 positions in the U.S. Senate will also be on the ballot. One person who's always busy, even if there is really no longer a political off-season political consultants, is Carol Brown Andrews. She's our guest here on Inside Politics this week. Carol, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy it.
Now, I guess there's always been political consultants in history ever since the first race for office was held back in prehistoric times, and people had to vote on it. But your business seems to be changing a whole lot these days. I suspect it's technology and media, isn't it, more than anything else?
It is. It is. I'll say back when I started a long time ago, it's coming up on 30 years now, and that's telling my age. But back in those days, you know, we were still faxing things. We had computers, but they weren't connected. And I had a beeper maybe, and would have to pull off on the side of the road to make a call at phone booths.
And you fax stuff to people.
And we faxed stuff to people and hard mailed people. You know, you would get press releases or whatever and it took days. And the news cycle was 12 to 24 hours, you know, because we still had 2 daily newspapers in every town, the AM and the PM, and then of course the broadcast people. So nothing was instantaneous. Now it's instantaneous.
Everything is what's the next minute.
Yes, and everyone is involved. It's not just the news people. Everyone is involved.
The other thing that's really changed is the accuracy, it seems, of the polling. I mean, we had what happened in the Brexit election, you had what happened recently in the general election in Great Britain, and of course the election of Donald Trump last year was considered to be an upset, all because the polling seemed to be off. Is there something wrong just structurally about how we do polling? Do we need to change it, blow it up?
Well, I'm no pollster, but I work with a lot of them, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. There was a New York Times article just several weeks ago, and I just sort of reviewed it again last night, where the National Polling Association met across the board, independents, Republicans, Democrats, and they were kind of going over it. If you remember, during the last presidential election 4 years ago, all of the Republican polling was off, and they were saying what was wrong with that, because Romney actually thought he was going to beat Obama. And this time, you know, I think the Clinton campaign really thought they were going to win. Well, they did win the popular vote, but they didn't win the electoral vote. And so the problem with it is that, and I've talked to a good friend of mine, a pollster I work with a lot. She was one of the top pollsters for the Clinton campaign. And what happened actually with the Trump campaign, or the Trump vote, was that you had 2 candidates that nobody really liked. They had high negatives. And you had a lot of independent or swing voters out there, and late in the game, the Comey investigation letter came out, and those folks broke for Trump. It was like a case of who do we, you know, not trust the most. So they just broke late in the game. And then the Brexit vote was like, this guy, Nigel Farage, I heard speak in March, back at the at my trade organization, and he'd been working on Brexit for years and years and years, and finally they branded it as Brexit. Nobody knew what Brexit was. They had no idea. It was just a cool sounding name. They were breaking free from something that they didn't really need breaking free from, or so they thought, and you know, just branded as something cool, and people went for it. And then they woke up the next day, and as you know, a lot of people didn't know what they had voted for. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Let's turn to something else that came out of last year's election, that is the rise of more women being involved in politics. Now, that happened coming out of the 2016 election, aiming towards 2020. That's 4 years. That's a long time to keep interest sustained at all. Are you seeing something going on, particularly particularly among women voters, that's going to sustain that over a 4-year period?
Yes, there are groups coming up everywhere. Of course, I'm involved with Emerge America, and we just affiliated here in Tennessee with our own group, Emerge Tennessee. Emerge America has been around for several years, and it's cropped up out of California, and they have been involved in several states for a number of years, and now they are making a huge push to go 50 states. We just became the 17th state in 2016. There are already 20 states online. By the end of this year, there'll probably be 25 to 26 states. Huge push in the South.
But there's a push upstream on this. I mean, there's a Politico recently had a survey out about why women don't run for office. Now, there's more to being involved in politics than just running for office, but still, why don't they run for office? That's still a problem.
They're not asked as much. They're not recruited as much as men are.
But they're not self-motivated to do it?
Well, they're not asked as much. They're a little shyer about it. Women feel like they have to stay at home, take care of the kids. They have a job. They have to take care of the home.
But the polling shows a double-digit difference between women who think they ought to run for office or have thought about it versus men. That's a pretty large number in polling.
It's just sort of an institutional thing, you know, starting at childhood. And, you know, a lot of women are just a lot shyer.
Parents, too.
Starting with parents. You know, and parents who have sort of, you know, brought their daughters up to be involved all along. My parents, I've always told me, my dad was, he's been gone a long time, but he was a World War II veteran. You better darn sure vote. Not going to tell you how, but you better darn sure vote. Had me out working the polls when I was a kid for former Senator Bill Baird, you would know, from Lebanon, Tennessee, was his friend, and you know, we would pass out the Emory boards and stuff like that.
And the key parent here is mamas.
My mom passed away a year ago, but she always, you know, if she saw something that wasn't right, whether it was county commission, school board, what have you, state legislature, she'd been known to come down here and rattle the cages, or call the congressman, whatever. You know, and she taught me to do the same. And
team sports, being involved in things like that makes a big difference too.
It does. And whenever your parents are telling you to be involved in, you know, team sports, student government, whatever it is, and they're pushing you to be involved in things, you're more likely to do that. And I'm seeing that here with what we're doing with Emerge, that more and more young women are coming up and they're really concerned. But women are more likely to be consensus builders and leaders and collaborators and work on things like health care, child care, pay equity, all sorts of, you know, important bread and butter issues, education, jobs, than men, and really consensus builders and collaborators. If you remember a few years ago at the big impasse when they were shutting down the government, who broke that impasse? It was women in the Senate across the board.
Carol Brown Andrews is our guest on Inside Politics. Back to continue our conversation with her after this break.